speaking until the board has had the opportunity to question the applicant. At the beginning of each case, people who are interested in the case should decide whether they desire to be parties to it. By being given the status of a party, that person will be entitled to receive notice of the decision in that case and will be entitled to participate in any subsequent appeal or rehearing. Individuals who are not given party status may nevertheless ask questions and present evidence, but will not receive notice of the decision and will not automatically be entitled to participate in any appeal or subsequent rehearing. If you desire to be a party to a particular case, we will ask you to sign an entry of an appearance form at the appropriate time. And although each party will receive a written copy of the decision, the mechanics of typing and signing the decision takes approximately 4 weeks. We ask that each person who asks a question or makes a statement first state his or her name and address for the court reporter. Now, lastly, in the interest of time, I'll administer the oath or affirmation to all applicants and to everyone and anyone who anticipates making a statement with respect to any of the hearings this evening. So at this time, would you please all rise? Thank you. Under penalties of perjury, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do. I do. Okay, thank you. Please stay standing. We'll salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Just so the record shows, this evening, not only are we in person with the hearings tonight, but we're also doing it virtual through Zoom. So there may or may not be people somewhere wanted to participate in any of these cases that we have this evening. Colin. Cases were advertised and posted in accordance with the Sunshine Law and the MPC?
Yes.
Gentlemen, you received the July 20th, 2020 board minutes as presented to us by our secretary. If there are no additions, deletions, or corrections, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hanson.
Under new business, third paragraph down, it should be case number 2411, not 2410.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, gentlemen, under new business on July 20th, 2020 minutes, case number 2411, call it third paragraph down, references 2410, that'll be changed to 2411. With that change, gentlemen, can I have a motion to approve the July 20th board minutes as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bingham. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hanson. Any discussion, gentlemen? Seeing none, Mr. Kyle? Favor. Mr. Luce?
Abstain due to absence.
Mr. Hanson?
In favor.
Mr. Bingham?
In favor.
And I also vote in favor. The July 20th board meeting, or board minutes, have been approved as amended by a 4-0-1 vote. Also, for those in the audience this evening, we are to have mask on, and everyone does. When you get to the microphone, if you want to take your mask down so it's clear, please do. We will sanitize the microphone in between speakers and cases. The only reason I bring that up is not only are you talking into the mic for our benefit, but it's also for the court reporter and also for our board minutes. But if you're comfortable talking and you're clear enough, fine, keep the mask up. As you notice, I dropped mine. I will put it back up when I'm done speaking. With that, Colin, old business.
None.
Okay. With that, we will proceed into new business. Colin, the first case, please.
Case 2414, Robert Casey of 2958 Kings Lane is requesting a special exception approval for an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, is Mr. Casey here and/or his representative? Okay, Mr. Linton. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to be a party to this case? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to sign the entry of appearance form now? Yes, please. Colin. Is there anyone else that wants to be a party to this case? Okay, seeing none, as soon as we're done with this. Thank you, ma'am. Sir, would you like to state your name, address, and present the case, please?
Yes. Name's David Linton, address of 2958 Kings Lane with Mr. Casey. We purchased the above referenced property in March of 2020 here. It is a 5-bedroom, 4.5-bath structure, and we do have the intention of moving forward. And we were looking for a special exemption to add a kitchen into the basement of the property. Classified as an accessory dwelling, but it is a rather small project of adding a kitchen into the basement. We feel it does allow enough parking spaces on the property, and we don't feel it would increase any traffic in the area other than a minor change in the basement of the structure, relatively minor exception to 273.5D1.
Okay, gentlemen, questions?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
So if the information on the house is correct, Mr. Lynn, your family and Mr. Casey would be living in the house, correct? I noticed on your plans, there was no, I didn't see where the kitchen's going.
There was a small highlight.
Yeah, the highlight didn't come through.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, I do have further.
So-
Actually, it's a 3-cabinet section. There's a hole
Okay,
right here. Cabinets there.
all right. That's good. Unless you want a copy for the record.
Colin,
Yes.
does your official copy have it on?
No, that's the same copy that. Yeah. Okay.
Get yours on there? Raise your hands.
Yeah, so we don't need that.
Okay.
Printing
Okay.
it doesn't come out.
That's fine.
One of the standard conditions that we put on this type of special exception request is that the property owner would submit a signed and notarized letter stating to the accessory dwelling will not be used as a rental property, and that would get attached to the deed, and that would be submitted to the township. Do you have any problem with that condition? Okay, thank you.
Do you,
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Mr.
can I-
Lewis?
I'm looking at the layout that you have on here. Is there an external entrance to the basement?
Yes.
The shed exit. Is that with the blue? Okay, those are not windows, those are doors? Is that what you're saying right there?
Patio door here.
Right here?
There's also a double external. Yes. there's
Okay.
Two doors.
All right. And they're sliding doors, glass doors, you said?
One in the patio, off the patio.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Any other questions? Colin?
No.
Jason?
You see which one? Yeah.
Yes, sir. So is the entire basement area going to be considered, is that going to be the accessory dwelling unit? Is it going to be, I noticed you have 2 bedrooms down there. So is that,
Correct. I mean, that's just how it was situated. For all intents, yes.
okay, okay, okay. And you're the son-in-law of Mr. Casey? Okay. I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Lynn, one of the requirements of the zoning ordinance is that there are additional use regulations, specifically in section 275.2. And one of them, 275.2A3, the accessory dwelling unit, the area considered part of the accessory dwelling unit is not to exceed 40% of the total square footage of the house. You know what your square footage is?
I don't know. Stuff is larger. I mean, yes.
The utilities room, which serve the whole house? Well, you could take that out of your square footage. I should.
Storage area also. I believe it.
Okay.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We're, those of us on Zoom are having a real difficult time hearing the applicant. If you could ask him to speak directly into the wireless microphone.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I have to ask you. I think you heard it. Anything else? Any other question? Any other questions?
I had one. just
Mr.
to
Bingham.
make Sure. In the way you responded to the question about the deed restriction, wanted to be sure that you understood that we're looking for a deed restriction that doesn't just apply to you, but to future purchasers of your home. Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that was clear. It goes with the deed, though, is what I mean. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone in the audience have any questions for the applicant? Questions? We'll get back to comments in a second. Okay, ma'am, would you mind using this microphone?
This goes with the deed.
Yes,
It will not be a rental property.
yes,
Did I
ma'am.
hear that correctly?
Yes.
This goes with the house and not just Mr. Casey as the owner.
No, it goes with the property.
Goes with the property.
Yeah, can we have your name and address?
I'm Mary Ann Johnstone. I live at 2965 Kings Lane.
Thank you.
I have a question about special criteria. I said that a special exception is a use permitted by right granted if it meets all the specific criteria. The criteria here that I'm referring to says a minimum of one off-street parking space shall be provided in addition to the off-street parking spaces required for the principal dwelling units, which would be the upper part of your house. You have not provided one extra space. You have not provided one extra space. That is part of the criteria here. I live right across the street. I know you have not provided an extra space for this accessory dwelling. But if there's 6 spaces on the property, but I know that there's a difficulty that you are having right now getting you have 2 cars in the garage and you have 4, you say you can have 4 cars in the driveway. That's really not feasible. And I know that there's going to be more cars. And I do believe that other neighbors have been told that there will be more people being moved in. My question is, where are all the cars going to be off-street? There will be more cars coming if what the neighbors have been told is true. I'm saying, where is the minimum of one more parking space going to be other than on the street, Mr. Lynn? But that's not my question. That's not my question. It's going to be, your special exception is going to be granted if the criteria is met. But one of the criteria is another one off-street parking space is supposed to be. Excuse me, go back. What did you just say, the 2 spaces?
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, can you please talk into the microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not understanding your last statement. What do you mean the last? No, that's not.
Ma'am, maybe we can just ask a clarification question here. Sir, how many parking spaces do you have in your driveway? Okay.
talk into your mic. Thank you.
I,
Mm,
And how many, so how many people will reside at the property? Okay.
Maybe I can simplify this for you, ma'am.
well, Mary Ann does live across the street, and Mary Ann has seen cars parked on the street. And I believe that I've seen the same car parked on the street for extended periods of time, more than once, Mr. Linton. So please, I live across the street, okay? So if suppose those people, now I don't want to suppose, this is a question. Those people may be moving in and there will be on the street.
Let me interrupt before this. You keep referring to people moving in. From what I understand is that the existing family, which is 5, and then one more, which is your father-in-law. Oh, okay, so the existing family, the upstairs part will have 4, the downstairs will have 1, so 5. Okay, so when you say additional people are moving in,
Mr. Casey mentioned to another neighbor that this will be the case.
well, it can't be a rental unit. It has to be for an accessory dwelling is spelled out. So we're putting a stipulation, well, it's the accessory unit does not allow for that the way it's written. And we also put the stipulation on that it can't be used as a rental unit. So with that stipulation, he would be in violation of an approval if the board grants the approval, of which case then the township would, cease and desist, and they'd have to stop. Otherwise, you go through the legal process of what's happening there. So,
there's no intention of.
okay. So before we go on, Mr. Hanson had something.
Ma'am, just to explain it to you, the zoning requirements for the township requires 2 parking spaces for each residential house off-street, okay? Those are provided for in the garage in this particular unit. The accessory requires 1 more since the driveway is capable of handling, according to testimony 4, I believe looking at the property the other day, you could get 4 small cars there. I don't think you could get 4 big USVs or SUVs in the driveway. But the requirement for parking is met because they're provided for off-street in the current driveway in the garage. Right? Whether they choose to park in the driveway or the garage, that's something the township can't enforce because there is allowed street parking in the township.
May I ask a question then that I really don't know, and I've lived there
Sure.
13 years. What's the off-street parking allowances or whatever for each residence, for each home? What's
For
the
each-
off-street? If you have driveways, but what's the off-street?
Each residential house has to provide for 2 off-street parking. So because of this being an accessory dwelling unit, 1 more off-street parking is required. That driveway is plenty big enough to put 2 cars in the garage and 1 car in the driveway, which meets the zoning ordinance. Okay? I hope that explains a little to you.
I had one other question.
Okay, please.
I have the description of the property that you. I have a real concern about this rental. I know what I've just heard tonight, but you said in your description that there's no way that this home has the potential for being used as a rental property, because at one point you say that it lacks a true individual entrance. That really simply is a mischaracterization. It has, I know the property, I've been over there. I know that there's entrances down there, that it can be used as a rental property. And I'm just, right. I still have a real concern that at some point when Mr. Casey is not the owner anymore, that there won't be a legal document signed by the new owner.
No,
How is that
no,
handled?
excuse me. Mr. Bingham made it clear that there will be a written document as part of the deed that the accessory dwelling that's in the house cannot be used as a rental property. And we do that to make sure.
And that's enforced.
Yes, if the township doesn't know it, but you find out, you can report it to the township and they would then investigate it. I can't say that the township will be out there every day, checking on to see who it is or isn't, but yes, if they find out that that the property is not being used in accordance with the zoning ordinance and any decision of this board, then, there's procedures that Mr. Seaholtz has to follow to rectify that problem. Okay?
Comments and questions that I have.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments, pro or con? Or no, comments, excuse me. Any questions of the applicant, pro or con? Okay. No other questions? Then is there anyone in the audience that wants to make any statement, either pro or con to this case? Sir? I am Robert. Well, I know you have a cane and it might be tough, but we need you on the microphone.
Actually, you wouldn't.
Well, I can't say that for everybody that comes up.
No one else will be living in the apartment with me. My sister has been helping me get it ready for me to live. I recently had 2 surgeries. I have another surgery coming up. I have spinal stenosis. I am a diabetic and I have cirrhosis of the liver. I can no longer live alone. But his wife is my daughter. I moved in with them so that I would have someone take care of me. We've been there since March 6th. I have been cooking for the hot plate. And no one else is moving into the property.
Sir, before you sit down and walk, any questions, gentlemen?
I am not.
Anyone in the audience have a question for Mr. Casey? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Is there anything else you want to add to the case before we conclude?
No, I mean, I feel we covered the parking spaces. I mean, once I believe, yeah, we are below 40%. Accessory dwelling structure. And yeah. Welcome any questions or comments from the board or suggestions.
Okay. With that, then, gentlemen, we will conclude testimony. We'll conclude testimony in case number 2414. The application needs to be amended because it does not stipulate the section under the general information. The request is for an accessory unit. That is 270-3.5-D sub 1. The applicant has asked that the application be amended. Do I have that as a motion?
So moved.
Who moved it?
I did.
Mr. Luce. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hanson. Before you, gentlemen, is a request to amend the application to stipulate it's 270-3.5-D 1 accessory unit for a special exception. Any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Kyle? In favor. Mr. Luce?
In favor.
Mr. Hanson?
In favor.
Mr. Bingham?
In favor.
And I also vote in favor. The application has been amended appropriately. Now, with that, gentlemen, there are no exhibits to add to this case. There is no administrative notice to be taken. So with that, I will ask for a motion in case number 2414, if there is one at this time.
Mr. Chairman, in case number 2414, make a motion to grant the special exception request to section 270-3.5D1 with the following conditions. Number one, property owner will submit a signed and notarized letter stating the accessory dwelling will not be used as a rental, which is to be attached to the deed. Number two, the accessory dwelling unit will not exceed the 40% condition as stated in the zoning ordinance. And number three are standard conditions.
Okay, excuse me. Motion by Mr. Hanson in case number 2414 for property at 2958 Kings Lane, Lancaster, to grant a special exception to section 270-3.5D1 for an accessory unit within the structure with the following conditions. One, a signed and notarized document to be attached to the deed stipulating that the accessory unit is not and cannot be used as a rental unit. Also, that a copy of that document will be submitted to the township to be added to this appeal. Two, that the accessory dwelling within the dwelling itself shall not exceed the 40%, which is stipulated in the ordinance. And three, the standard conditions that we attach to our decisions. Is that it?
Correct.
Do I have a second, gentlemen?
Second.
Again, I don't, Mr. Kyle, thank you. I like it when we're closer. I can tell who's making, especially when you keep hiding your faces. Gentlemen, we have the motion in front of us. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Kyle?
In favor.
Mr. Luce?
In favor.
Mr. Hanson?
In favor.
Mr. Bingham?
In favor.
And I will also vote in favor. Your request has been granted with the conditions as stipulated. I would only say that I would have the signed and notarized document instituted before you move forward with any construction. Okay? Thank you. Thanks, everyone that was here. Now, we'll take a couple second break while we.
He's turning on me. I said on the next case, how this came out upside down.
Oh.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Made it a little more challenging to read.
Kept going up and I'm like, all right, just figure it out.
You want to read the hard copy?
No, I got it.
Thank you, Colin. Colin, next case, please.
Case 2415, Suzanne Herzog filed an application seeking a special exception approval for a home-based business with impact for the property located at 2415 Mayfair Drive.
Okay, is Ms. Herzog here and/or her representative? Anyone in the audience who wants to be a party to this case? Seeing none, Ms. Herzog, please state your name, address for the record, and present your case.
Suzanne Herzog, 2415 Mayfair Drive. I am seeking a special exception approval for a home-based business impact. I would like to put my hair salon in my home. I am actually renting right now, and there have been some issues there with leaking in the roof, and things have not been resolved. And it's starting to get pretty bad. There's starting to get to be some black mold, and I've addressed it with the landlord, and I'm very concerned about my clients' health and my health. And I just always wanted to put a hair salon in my home, and I just feel like now is a good time to do it. And I will also comply with sections 270-9.1E2 of the zoning ordinance. I will have ample parking space out front. And I am currently a licensed cosmetologist. I've had my business that I have now for 15 years, but I've been doing hair for 38 years. And I actually have already applied with State Board of Cosmetology, and they accepted my application. And I just wanted to ask for permission from East Hempfield Township to be able to do this.
Okay. Questions, gentlemen? Mr. Hanson.
Along with the variance request, the variance or that particular section does say you have to conform to section 270.5 GG. Have you read over them?
I have not. I didn't realize I needed the variance.
Can you comply with everything that's on here? Sure. Starting here.
Oh, yes.
And it goes to right here.
It would just be me working. And retail sales would just be products.
Right.
It would be in a structure and just one vehicle. Especially now with COVID, I really. And so it would be just one person. Then I will go ahead and get an occupancy permit.
Okay. All right. Next question. Where in the house is this going? I saw the plan that you submitted, but it doesn't really say where it's going.
We have our garage, and then we have another room here beside the garage.
Okay.
And then our bedroom is the next room. We're actually going to use our bedroom and the garage for the salon.
Okay.
And then there will be a bathroom. Well,
I believe state law requires you to have a sign. Is that correct?
yes.
And you'll be able to do, I think, what is it, 6 square feet, Colin?
I believe so, yes, 6, yeah.
You're not going to go any bigger than that, are you?
Oh, no.
That'd be like 2 by 3.
I already wrote down what size sign I need. I've tried to
Yeah.
cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
The specific regulations that you looked over said that the hours cannot exceed 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. What do your hours intend to be?
I typically go by appointments, so I don't really do walk-ins or anything. And I normally don't start before 7, and mostly by 8 o'clock. and I'm almost always done before 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
In days of the week?
Probably Monday through Friday for sure, and some Saturdays, but I don't do a lot of Saturdays because I try to keep my Saturdays open for family time, unless someone needs to come in. Exception. I've always tried to be there for my clients and make it convenient for them.
And just to reiterate, you do not have any intention of having any employees, it's just you yourself?
Just myself.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Luce.
When you normally have your clients coming, do you have, you were saying one client at a time, will there be overlapping times when someone's waiting?
Once in a while, but because of COVID, I have had to space everybody a little farther apart. So I haven't had much of that because we're required by the state not to have a huge capacity of people in there. So basically it's been about one person, and then usually they might cross, you know, when one leaves and one comes, but typically I haven't really had anyone waiting or anything.
Do you have ample room in there for waiting, or?
I do.
Okay.
And I actually, I actually measured 6 feet.
Okay.
You know, I measured it to make sure it was 6 feet, and it is.
All right. And so is that sort of how you plan? Do you do time lapses in between appointments usually, or is it just, I mean, hopefully, God forbid, knock on wood, this COVID thing goes away one of these days, and we need to have it all planned out for after that as well.
Right. Normally before COVID, I would have someone, maybe a color processing, and then, you know, maybe do a haircut in between while the color was processing. But because the space that I will have isn't going to be quite as big as where I am now, I will only be able to have one station. So therefore, I probably would only be able to have one client at a time at this point.
Okay.
Because, you know, I wouldn't really have another station for them to sit at. So I would just probably do one at a time.
You don't have any plans of bringing anybody else in there to do? Okay.
No.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Bingham?
I have one question for you. We talked about the sign. Do you plan to have the sign illuminated, lighted?
I'm not sure. I hadn't thought about it. Am I allowed to have it illuminated or not? I mean, I don't really have to.
Yeah, it can be illuminated. That's something we could discuss after tonight. If it gets approved, we can discuss that and what the permitting process for that.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
I
Thank
ask a
you.
follow-up question?
Mr. Hanson?
Traditionally, when we have a business like yours in a home, we try and discourage lighted signs.
Okay, that's fine.
By right, you can have a lighted sign, but you wouldn't have a problem accepting that as a
I
condition.
don't have a problem not having a lighted sign.
Okay.
Honestly, most of my businesses come from word of mouth. When I first opened 15 years ago, I did do some advertising, but it's very costly. Being a, you know, a single owner and not having, you know, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on advertising. So my business was basically built just from word of mouth. So I don't really have to have a lighted sign or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen? I have a couple. The one deals with the parking. With your existing home, how many parking spaces are there now?
We basically have about 4. We have 2 here and then 2 here, like this. So it's 2 and 2.
Okay, so if you do have an overlap, will there be enough space for 2 additional?
Yes.
Okay,
There will be.
Excuse me, did you say you had a garage?
Yes.
yeah, but I just want to make sure that if there is overlap, that the cars are off the street. The sign question was taken care of. Your hours, you said, basically 8 to 9, but sometimes you start at 7. Would you have problems with restricting that to 8
No, not at all.
And that would be beginning even on Saturday when you have some appointments? Okay.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
Okay. With that, Colin? Jason?
Yeah, Ms. Herzog, when I looked at the property information for this property, I saw that the owner was Suzanne Bechtold, and I assumed that maybe that was your previous name. Is that,
Yes, yes.
okay, so you are the owner?
I am, yes.
Okay,
I
thought,
have my driver's license to confirm who I am if you need to.
okay, because I thought I heard you say in your testimony that you're renting the property.
Oh, no, we are
Okay, all right.
we have a mortgage. When I bought it, I was Bechtold, and then my husband and I got married, and now
Okay,
it's Herzog.
okay, I understand. And do you don't have to make any changes, like, what kind of changes do you have to make to that room to make it, to allow you to utilize it for your salon?
We do have a window in the room now, and I do need to have an outside entrance. So we plan on taking the window out and putting a door there, and then building a walkway along the side of the house to the front for people to be able to get in. And I do plan on making that ADA accessible. And then we will probably put a wall up to block off our bedroom, so that can be private, and then the bathroom will then be for the salon. And probably some renovations in the bathroom too, a little bit of
Okay.
renovations in the bathroom, plus putting my station in and, doing the plumbing and doing the electrical work and everything.
Okay. And the bathroom, it connects to there's a door from the salon, or?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a door that goes there. I'm planning on taking that door off to
Okay,
get to where the bathroom is.
okay.
Again, making it ADA accessible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on the questions of Mr. Hess, except for the window to be made into a door, are there any other exterior changes to your property that would take it away from a residential looking structure?
No.
Okay.
Oh, just the walkway to go up to the door.
Yeah,
but,
I understand, but you could have that on a residential property anyway.
It would not be any other changes, no.
Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that wants to make a comment, either pro or con to the application? Seeing none. Anything else you want to add at this time?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add that there's nobody on Zoom that has any questions either.
Okay, thank you. Okay. With that, gentlemen, we will conclude testimony in case number 2415. Gentlemen, at the request of the applicant. No, I take that back. That's just my handwriting, sorry. And the section was faded in mine. I couldn't see it, and I had to put it in, and that's why I was going to amend the ordinance, or amend the application. With that, gentlemen, there are no exhibits and no administrative notice to take into consideration. So with that, I will listen to a motion in case number 2415, if there is one at this time.
Mr. Chairman, in case number 2415, the request of Suzanne Herzog at 2415 Mayfair Drive, Lancaster, PA 17603. Make a motion to grant a special exception to section 270-3.5D6 with the following conditions. Hours of operation will be limited to Monday through Saturday. Hours will be 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sign will not be lighted. There will be no employees,
And our other,
and our standard conditions.
okay. Motion by Mr. Hanson in case number 2415, property 2415 Mayfair Drive, Lancaster, PA, to grant a special exception to section 270-3.5 D6 to allow for an in-home hair salon in-home business impact hair salon with the following conditions. Hours of operation will be from Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. That the sign will not be lighted, that there will be no employees, and our standard conditions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bingham. Discussion, gentlemen? Seeing none. Mr. Kyle?
In favor.
Mr. Luce?
In favor?
Mr. Hanson?
In favor.
Mr. Bingham?
In favor.
And I will also vote in favor. Your request has been granted with the conditions as so stated.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, we'll need a couple minute break anyway because we gotta wipe down the microphone again. Thank you. Need a beer. I think that's what we should have here.
The tattoo mark says standard conditions.
Maybe on his forehead, what do you,
Well,
written down?
our standard conditions, I forget it. There was like 3 of them.
Yeah. Keep us legal.
Right on the front.
Nobody
Just
ever asks
raise it
what
up.
they are. They just accept it. We could put something really nasty in there.
Yeah. We've been putting them on so long.
I know.
It's just like compliance with
Resemblance?
the ordinance and all state, federal regulations. And
I did read them once.
go ahead. We're going to take a couple second break.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanson needed a drink. So if anybody needs a break, now's the time. Well,
Unfortunately, it's only water.
Yeah. Knowing Mr. Hanson, I can't answer that. Oh, I'll be so glad when this virus gets over.
Huh?
You know, I come in.
His exhibits better be
all
pre-marked.
the time.
Well, it goes right into my glass.
Yeah, I don't mind wearing the mask. It's the glass. I do the same thing with skiing. I don't wear goggles too often
How's it fall?
because they fog up. So I'm always,
Run into a tree.
yeah. So I have sunglasses on, snowing
All right.
on, unless it gets really bad.
Yeah, Mr. Hess, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, that's this. This is one.
Good, thank you.
Yes. I don't know if you heard her ask, the woman in the back asked if you wanted to hand out her floor plan also.
She's my client, so you're probably good.
While we're still on this little recess, the applicant is handing out some exhibits which will be part of the record for those on Zoom.
Did have one, now they're gone.
It's always Cindy's like, I'm not that deep.
There's actually.
How are you?
Very well.
An interesting
Yes.
question
Yep.
that you raise about when will it be over?
Okay, yep.
That's difficult.
These sheets are here.
One exhibit. that-
One, two, yeah, I just need it. Okay, Exhibit 3, 3 sheets.
1, 2, okay, thank you. Okay.
It'll never be over.
Oh, yeah. That's the hope.
Applicant's number 3.
That's 3 with 3 sheets. I think some people think. Okay. Can we go back on the record, please? With that, Colin, the next case.
Case 2416, Lisa Cooper filed a variance request for residential density for the property located at 2111 Marietta Avenue.
Okay, is the Ms. Cooper here or her representative? I presume the representative is going to present the case.
I am, Mr. Chairman, if you permit me. I need to tell you I am the proud father of young Mr. Hess sitting over there.
Well, he and I had a discussion today, and you two can discuss that discussion later. Before you go on, is there anyone in the audience that wants to be a party to this case? You're the applicant, you're already a party. Sir, sign an entry of appearance form. Anyone else? Okay, once he's done, we'll proceed.
Possible.
It's possible, but I just think in the near future, I think it's going to be more
Next
like,
year.
going to be more like a vaccine or a flu shot. I will take a flu shot because problem with that.
The anti-vaccine people are the risk. Could bring back measles in certain areas. Polio has reappeared here and there. Everyone gets it at birth or almost anything. Magic Pillow guy has his own. That today, the guy that owns the Magic Pillow company. Herbal treatment. Passed it on. Possible alternative. I was, believe it or not, I was in trial of Jonas Salk's polio vaccine. I grew up in Pittsburgh and Salk was at the university.
Thank you.
And the Pittsburgh public schools were used.
Yeah, they were. One of them.
And I got the shot.
Well, look what happened.
I think my parents finally found out, but I never knew whether I was in the control group or the experiment.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll go back on the record. So please state your name and address for the record and present the case.
Chairman, my name is Melvin Hess. I'm with Gibble, Crable, and Hess Law Firm. And I guess since the gentleman has just signed in, I presume he's asking for party status.
Yes.
And if he is, I guess it's close enough. We didn't need that.
The entry of appearance indicates that the address is 2103 Marietta Avenue, Apartment A.
Right,
Right next door, across the road.
good. Well, then I certainly have no reason to challenge that. Having said that, however, I think I do need to ask him, since he wants to party status, whether he objects to my continuation of representing this client when the solicitor is my son. I think
That's fine.
I think I need to.
I'm fine with it.
Thank you, sir. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. All right, having said that, I would also ask that I know that the application of the applicant is normally part of the record, but I'm going to ask that that be marked as an exhibit also as part of our presentation. I'm sure you each have one of those in front of you. In any event, I do represent Ms. Cooper, Lisa Cooper, who's purchased this property. And currently, as she will testify, and Mr. Strausser will testify, she's there with her office and 2 apartments constructed in the existing building. And then in addition to that, she would desire to construct 8 additional units on the site. The reason we're before you and what compels us to come before you, bought the property, the deed as set forth in Exhibit A to the application indicated that the property was in excess of 1 acre. That was important to her, as she will testify. She's been involved in land development in the past, and she's also a realtor. She knows the density requirements of municipalities are frequently, most often, or totally come down on acreage. And so that was important to her. And it was only after she started thinking about developing this tract and got the tract surveyed that they discovered that there was an undocumented conveyance to the railroad of a couple acres, as Mr. Strausser will testify. The result is we have a little less than 1 acre. And as the testimony will indicate, it's our belief that the variance we seek is a de minimis variance because it is. Secondly, as noted also in the narrative and in the application, the existing structure is in violation of your current side yard requirements set forth in 270-372. And my belief that this is a pre-existing condition. Nonetheless, I know that a lot of municipalities have a policy that if a unit or a structure, existing structure is changed, that may somehow change the status of that otherwise legal nonconformity. If that is the opinion of this board, then I'm asking for a variance from that section as well. With that, I'm prepared to call our first witness.
Please.
Lisa, would you kindly give your full name and address, please?
My name is Lisa Cooper. I live at 652 Chiswell Place in Lancaster, which is in Manheim Township. However, I own the building at 2111 Marietta Avenue, and I have since 2003. It just recently got 6 years ago deeded to solely me, so.
So you owned it since 2003. 2014 is the deed attached to Exhibit A to the application, and you are now the sole owner of the property.
That's correct.
Currently existing on the property, Mr. Cooper, as well.
There's my office building, which was built in 1853, has my office on the first floor and a conference room on the second floor. And then there's an apartment on the second floor and an apartment on the first floor.
And professionally, your career, if you'd summarize that?
I've been a home builder for 36 years. I sold real estate for 13 years prior to that. I still have an active real estate license, but that's only because I don't want to pay 5% commission to somebody who sells a property that I build. 2.5 is fine, but I don't need to do 5. And I hope to retire soon.
And so if the board grants the relief requested, would you kindly tell the board what your intentions are?
My intention is to build 8 small apartments, all one building, 4 on each floor, ADA accessible or handicap. If someone should want it, I would build it right away handicap, but it's handicap convertible. All 1 bedrooms, approximately 660 square feet each. The goal is to rent them high-end apartments, granite countertops, hardwood floors, ceramic tile bathrooms, that type of thing, to doctors coming in, doing residency at Lancaster General Hospital and the health clinic, and then there's a new hospital in Harrisburg Pike, as well as people who work at the health campus, because they could literally walk to the health campus from where my office is located now and this property is. Of course, there'll be other people who would be interested. I also have tenants in my current building who are interested in renting apartments in this building because it's new and it'll be modern, and the people on the second floor have health conditions and they want the first floor. No guarantee they'll do that. I'm just saying they've expressed interest. I also had some interest expressed from the hospital because a friend of mine's husband is a doctor who said that they wouldn't mind having a completely furnished unit so that when doctors who do their rotations come in, they can stay at these apartments because they're very nice and they would be furnished. One of the things I didn't want to do was impact the school district, and that's why these are all small 1-bedroom apartments. I don't anticipate more than 2 people in any of them, and most of the time I would think it would be 1.
And very quickly, if you would, I know certainly the board knows the neighborhood, but very quickly for the record, just describe the neighborhood, please.
There are 8 condominiums that are across the right of way from my property.
And if you want to refer to Exhibit 1, which I just handed you, which is the aerial,
Yes.
and there's you see the property is noted or designated, and there's a drive beside, apparently a drive beside, if you would refer to that one.
And that drive is also part of a right-of-way that came with my deed. When I bought this property, it said that I had 1 acre and 2.86 purchase, which would have been about 44,400 square feet. Obviously, I'm a little short because somewhere along in the tract of the deeds, about 15 feet across the back of the property was deeded to the railroad.
When you bought the property, you anticipated or believed it was an excess.
Yes, and the deed still says that.
Okay. All right, now go back to, as you describing the character of the neighborhood.
Okay, there are condominiums beside my property now. I'm at 2111. There's a hair salon, and there was a pool supply house, and then there was something else in the apartment where it says Snippers, and there's an apartment in there. The General Surgery of Lancaster used to be Susan Whitman's consignment shop, and then there's a building that's down the street there that beside it that has 2 apartments in it, maybe 3, and then there's another apartment beside the gas station. Across the street, there are apartments where there's Tango Salon, there's apartments. The Board Snyder Funeral Home has an apartment on top of it because I renovated it. Lesser Lumber Company is here. It's a very, very mixed use of what's in this neighborhood.
Okay, and currently on the site, you've quickly described it. What do you intend to do with the second structure,
There is a barn that is about 44 by 46 square feet approximately. My intention is to tear it down and also, because it's an eyesore, tear it down and also take out some of the parking that's there now so that it all becomes one area of parking. My hopes is that I can stay under 5,000 square feet of additional improvements because I'll have credits for the things I'm taking down.
And finally, if you would look at Exhibit 3. Describe that for the board, please.
This is a sketch of what I'm hoping to do. As you can see, there are ADA units in here. They're small one-bedroom, but they will meet all the zoning requirements necessary, egress windows in the bedrooms. There are 4 on the first floor and 4 on the second floor. They're very small, but they will be very nice. They each have an outside area, whether it's a balcony or a patio or a deck. And I think that there's a covered porch area in there. And then we'll have storage for each unit so that people don't have a lot of trash in the balconies or patio areas, a little storage container for a storage area for them to have things. And then I'll have the mechanical room in the downstairs. This is all covered under one roof, but the middle where the stairway is that goes up the top services both sides of the second floor, and it will be open.
Very quickly, just for the record, Exhibit 3.
Yes, I just noticed that myself.
And your office that currently exists on this property, you would do, that would stay or no?
Well, I would ideally like to keep my office until these apartments are built, and then I will retire. But it's currently 3 separate units right now, but I will make it 2 because the 1 unit is very, very small.
That's all I have for this witness, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, questions for the witness? Mr. Hanson.
Mr. Cooper, one of the things I didn't see in your submittal was you did testify there is an easement agreement, correct?
Yes, it's on the driveway of the condominiums next door.
And you would have no objection to making sure that the copy of that gets sent to the township with this?
I can
No,
provide a copy.
That's no problem. It was negotiated when Ken Salm owned that property. That's who I bought it from. When Ed Garris decided to build those condos over there, it was negotiated, the easement agreement, and was supported. But I have no problems getting you a copy.
Mr. Hess,
Yes, sir.
a lot of my questions going to do with the property itself and construction. Do you have somebody else that's going to testify to better serve answering those questions?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'll wait for the rest of my questions.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
Yes.
Mr. Luce?
Just a question on the property in the front where your office is right now. Right now, you have your office and 2 apartments.
Correct.
And eventually, you said you're going to be retiring and moving out of that office. So now it's going to be only utilized by 2?
I'm going to take one of the small apartments out and make, and then the second, I'll have 2 apartments in the front building, and I'd like to do 8 apartments in the back.
Okay, so you eliminate the business and just make it into 2 instead of 3. So you're going to have,
That's
you
right.
eliminate need for parking in that area.
Correct.
Okay.
Let me ask you, Ms. Cooper, on the record. You consent to a condition that if the relief requested is granted and the apartments are constructed, at least as to the front, the current, the existing unit.
Right.
Would you agree to a condition that that office then be terminated and 2 units would be in the first unit, the big house?
Yes. That'll force me to retire.
You'll love it.
They don't have to force me.
Any other questions? I have one. The existing structure where your office is and the 2 apartments,
Yes.
Is there any changes to that structure, external changes that are going to be made to that structure?
No, it'll just be inside, so I can make it 2 size units.
So basically, the appearance
Will not change.
change, and you'll just do upgrades like the windows, whatever, and that, but, okay, thanks. Colin? Jason?
No, not for this witness.
Okay.
One follow-up question.
Mr. Luce?
The garage then, you said the barn or whatever back there, that's gonna be eliminated and nothing's gonna be put up in its place?
Nothing.
Okay.
Taking down barnyard boys or.
All right. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have a question for this witness? Sir? Do you want the mic wiped down?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm Tim Jacobs. I am I live at 2103 Marietta Avenue, Apartment A. I also am the president of the 2103 Marietta HOA. There's 8 of us.
Okay, before you go on, can you come up here a second, just so I can see on this thing?
Absolutely, yes.
So know where you're at. If it's even on there.
B is right there.
Okay, that's,
C, D, E, and F is here, and G and H is in the back.
okay, so these
Correct.
are, what'd you say it was, address?
2103.
Okay. Gentlemen, did you guys see?
Yeah, we're good, thanks.
We know,
Okay.
yeah.
Jason?
I fight every day.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Now, question for the.
Yes. My question is once, provided everything is approved and the barn goes down,
Yes.
entrance in and out of the units is through the existing, or is it you planning on using the driveway for us?
Entrance will be out part. Do you know Bonnie that lives
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Okay, well, the part of the driveway closest to her will be eliminated.
Okay.
It'll be a straight shot in, down through where the barn is.
Yep.
To the parking that's perpendicular to the building and out the right of way.
That answers my question, and it actually makes things, I feel much better about it.
Good.
What my biggest concern was is,
No,
sorry,
no concerns at this time.
apologies.
Not
My
yet.
apologies.
I will give you a chance for that.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. That's the only question I have at this point.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a follow-up.
Okay, Mr. Hanson has a follow-up.
I have some concerns with that, and since he brought it up, I drove by there Friday, I believe it was, and that driveway access where you're gonna have the easement as part of, was packed with cars.
Oh, that's because they were. Cars that are parked there.
Okay,
That's the truth. Ask them.
That is correct, yes.
okay,
In fact, they were parked in my parking lot. A lot of them.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
I actually, that brings up one question. Do you have an agreement with the owner of the adjoining property about the maintenance of that road? Is that, okay?
And that's,
Go ahead, Mr. Hanson.
that's why I asked for that easement agreement, because I have a concern here, because normally when a project like this moves forward, there's usually already an easement agreement in place or one being planned.
I don't think there is.
And that's my question, is that I noticed that on the drawing marked sheet 2, it says easement agreement, but it doesn't say who the agreement's with or.
There was.
We have an answer. There you go.
And the mic, please.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
what I probably will do is have this introduced by the next witness.
Okay.
And we can go over it, and I can maybe make copies, or I don't know how we want to handle that.
Like enough to wait?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for this witness? Thank you again.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Up to the mic.
Hang on, you guys. Cover this.
but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, you're okay.
Counselor, would you kindly give your full name and professional address?
Name's Gregory L. Strausser, P.E., Strausser Surveying and Engineering, address 2586 Lidditz Pike, Lancaster, 17601.
And if you would kindly, sir, summarize your educational background?
I have a 2-year degree in associate surveying technology from Penn State Mont Alto, a 4-year degree from Penn State civil engineering background. I've been a licensed professional since 1986. At that point in time, I also joined my father's firm in 1991. I bought him out and have been president of Strausser Surveying and Engineering since 1991. Oh, really?
It's up to him.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And professionally, sir, all the time you just described has been in Lancaster County?
Yes, sir.
And it's, do you also serve or have served in any boards, local boards?
I do. For 7 years, I've been a member of the Manham Township Zoning Hearing Board. I'm also, for 7 years, on the an associate director at the Lancaster County Conservation District. For the last 2 years, I've also served as the vice chairman of the Capital Area Resource Conservation and Development Council.
Is it fair to say that professionally, sir, since you've been in Lancaster County all those many decades, that most of your, well, all of your work has been commercial and residential development?
Solely.
I therefore move to have Mr. Strausser qualified as an expert in the area of land use and zoning.
Accepted.
All right, if you would kindly, you heard the description by Lisa of the existing site and the improvements on there. You have an exhibit, and it's also attached to the application. I understand that. But do you concur with what you've already heard Ms. Cooper testify as to what currently exists on the site?
Yes, I do. As far as the existing improvements, that's pretty much what we had shown on the sheet 1, and she pretty much covered what is there that is existing. What I've shown on this sheet 2 is just duplicated, just for your own reference, the blue existing structure up front, and also where the blue frame barn is.
And in your research, sir, concerning this property, did you come across an easement agreement dated 12/5/85?
Yes, sir.
Board's permission, may I get this?
Correct. He wanted the application. Although he agreed that it's part of it, he still.
Give you what's been marked applicant number 5, if you'd quickly describe that for the record.
Yeah, this is an easement agreement that is recorded, Lancaster County Recorder Deeds Office, Deed Book U 93, page 596. It establishes easement rights between the prior owner of the Cooper property, Mr. Somm, and the, at that time, developer, Edward Drogaris, of the condominium units to the east. This easement agreement enables and allows Somm to use this area that we've identified. There's a legal description in the easement agreement. I'm sorry, gentlemen, I'm back in here. Roughly 25-foot easement line that's established along the existing cartway that cuts in through. There's also clauses in that easement agreement that set up a proportional maintenance schedule for that point in time that Mr. Somm moved forward and do whatever development he was initially contemplating on his piece of ground. That part never came to fruition under the Somm ownership. However, of course, Drogaris went ahead, developed the condominium.
For the board's benefit, and we likely should have this copied, I suppose, before we leave and hand it. But very quickly, there is a formula based on the number of vehicles that are going to be parked, which you'll see when you
I think we should, I was gonna ask that you, Mr. Jacobs, if you wanted to see this at all.
Could we just take a couple-minute break? Colin, could you just make some copies?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, we'll stand in a recess till we get the copies. So how old were you? How old were you when?
I was boys outside. It's a good thing this is over summer. I remember where there was.
Amen.
School shut down, all that fun. I don't know what happens, but they're excited to get back next week.
Good. My wife isn't. But
Yeah, is she a teacher?
Third grade.
Okay. Where's she teaching?
Centerville.
Oh, does she teach?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, she's anxious to get back, but she's just like third grade. They're not going to get their masks on. She's worried about them. She goes, they're just going to be spreading stuff around.
Mine's fourth and second.
Yeah,
They do pretty good with the masks,
Yeah.
but they don't wear them all day.
I think you may have
And
asked.
there are
just
good
me
kids
about
in
two, 'cause you
there.
wanted
There's also a lot of
Okay, so 4 is
back to
the
college on
application
Friday
itself.
to
Okay.
Shippensburg, and we just
Okay,
moved the
thanks.
other one at Penn State in yesterday. Now he came back.
Yeah,
He's like,
but I don't know, either one of them would start here. I think they're both at their.
they're all virtual classes anyway.
Yeah, well, that's right.
You know, at Shippensburg, I'm just like, my son said,
Somebody else.
he goes, Dad, I'm living.
Yeah, I saw somebody was virtual classes. I'm like,
I said, that's sort of ridiculous, but the other one had to get his apartment.
Colin would have the
Dad,
actual
he's a
one.
junior, he just transferred from Lebanon Valley.
They don't trust me with them, the actual stuff, you know?
You know, if I don't, they'll put someone else in there, so I mean, I know how to do it. I'm like, okay, dude, I understand. Don't let the grades suffer, you know.
Right.
You won't be up there next semester either.
Exactly. Somebody else will be there.
We'll lease it out somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just a weird year.
It is. I'm just, you know, I am thankful that they are not seniors.
Yeah.
You know, to have to go through all that kind of stuff too.
That would be tough. Yeah. Yeah.
So my middle one just left and transferred from Lebanon Valley because he plays soccer there, and he was sort of hemming and hawing. He first started out looking at the kid, and he's looking at West Virginia for dental school.
Okay.
And but the question was, he goes, you know, he still wanted to play soccer. They took second in states that year, senior year here. And
Time
he's
I've
like,
been
I
spending
still want to play soccer. So
uh,
I can't
having
do that
fun.
One, but, you know, and they looked
This past
up
weekend.
here. All right, I'll do it. And I said, listen,
Son
well, as he was trying to contemplate, I'm like, if you don't want to do it, you know, if you don't like soccer, then you can transfer somewhere else at least. But it's going to be, you're not going to be able to transfer back, you know, to go to Lebanon Valley then after that too. So he did it for 2 years. He just said, you know what? It's not what I thought. So I'm like, that's cool. You did it and everything. So,
And we kind
he
of
just
went
wants
up
to get,
one
I think he wants
side
to
of
get
the
to Penn
stream.
State because he goes,
top
he turns 21 in November.
I was gonna
1st.
say,
Yeah, so he's like,
yeah, exactly.
Dad, there's nothing in Lebanon.
Whole different life at Penn State to Lebanon
Yep.
Valley.
So the 5 guys in his apartment, 3 of them are turning by November 1st. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be nasty.
And they ride up and
They're
down.
hoping to be sequestered this winter.
Yeah. And that's what we all said. It was funny because we were all moving the kids in yesterday at the same time, and they all came home with all of us, and now they're going to go back up tomorrow. But we're talking to them, saying,
There's a
listen,
bike for every kind of circle.
Yeah, right.
you can just stay in here. You guys know
I'll tell you
what's
what.
going on. And all theirs are online too right now. So
That was just, it was a
it's just
beautiful
really
day.
weird to be paying that much money for them to live in an apartment that they're not, no need to be there for.
Well, they're getting the life skills, right?
Yeah.
I say that's, you know, getting that sense of independence.
Well,
I guess.
Yep. I said if I'd be able to pay, if I'd be going to Penn State, I'd go to be there too.
Yeah.
The youngest one is Shippensburg. He's like, Dad, he goes, yeah,
Week every
they're just
month.
gonna be nuts up here, Dad. You know, I'm like, all right. He plays rugby and they have a rugby house, and he's like,
Why I have a tan.
there's gonna be nobody wearing masks or anything there. I said, then don't go.
That's good. I
I said, at
garden
least
a
if you
lot.
do wear your mask, you know, just don't be stupid.
Over an acre of
Yeah, that's the problem.
garden.
College kids don't always think. Grown-ups, I guess, for that matter.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's definitely prevalent with.
Yep.
Seeing a video, was it Villanova or somewhere, all the freshmen were there just like partying. Next week, nobody had masks on, they were all just doing their thing, having fun,
Yeah.
not a care in the world.
I keep saying, I'm like, just because you don't have to go to class doesn't mean you don't have to study, dude.
Right,
You gotta be on top of it.
biology, all kinds of science courses.
But we'll get it. And I'm happy he's had the experience. Virtual right now. I said, dude, you want to be on campus next year and doing all that stuff, you better get your grades going. He's a good student, but that's the last thing. He didn't have that.
And there was a year in between.
Validation part of the soccer guys. So I don't think there's much
easily drive.
Make it work wherever you are, but there's just a lot of stimuli up there. So
Penn State is a big distraction there.
And then I decided to teach, which was
Thank you.
a small change from what I used to do, which was the only
Thank
place
you.
I'd ever worked from the time I graduated from FNM until then. But it was very much like high school I went to in Pittsburgh.
Okay,
But yeah, that's
everybody has a copy, so let's go back on the record then. And you, Mr. Hess, you were,
I think we summarized Exhibit 5, but we're prepared now to talk about the proposed improvements. Council, if you want to discuss very quickly what is proposed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, excuse me again.
And maybe if you would, before you begin, show the board where the little track was taken off of the railroad. And they obviously know it.
Yeah, and just to get reoriented to the plan, Marietta Avenue along the south, the railroad is to the north. It's really just this, actually, we don't show the strip that was taken off, but it was listed as this 0.067 acre tract, which was a exclusion, but they never, what we call, reworked the deed area. So when you read the deed, it says 1 acre, 2.86 perches. That in itself, the fact that they even used perches meant that that legal description was from a long, long time ago. And I couldn't even begin to tell you how many different owners there might have been under that particular legal description. But when the railroad exclusion went through, it was written just as an acreage, a raw acreage, 0.067 acres. But it was very, very well, what we call, hidden. So that anybody who's looking at that deed, at not just first blush, but even digging into it, is going to see, oh, it's 1 acre, 2.86 perches, which roughly is about 1.022 acres. So once the exclusion went through, we did our discernment as surveyors, realized that the actual boundary line was truly, well, in the field, it's really transparent because this is all grown up back here, but we realized on paper that we had a solution that unfortunately rendered this total tract area as being just slightly 1 acre. That's what brings us here tonight. It's actually 1,964 square feet, I believe. Thank you, Mel. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting it. Mask was up, so thank you. Maybe just to be kind to everybody, I'll do on this side. So that's where we are with the deed. That's where the railroad strip came off. The actual development plan that we came up to, the intent here was really to try to show the board that we could relatively, I don't want to say easily, nothing's easy anymore, but some things are easier than others. We wanted to be able to show the board that we could come up with a development plan that meant subdivision land development ordinance requirements, zoning ordinance requirements, even if this site is something just slightly less than 1 acre. To that extent, what we did was about where the existing driveway goes into Lisa's property, we were actually going to be putting in this 14.5-foot wide access road. That's in accordance with the township's chapter 222 roadway standards, which actually mimic driveway widths that are required by PennDOT for one-way entrances, 10-foot turning radiuses at the corners. We would bring that driveway back since Lisa was retaining 2 units in the front house. We actually set up 4 proposed parking spaces that's shown And I'm referring to everything with the green lines here on this plan just to try to give some clarity to the actual line work that you see on the plan. The plans you are looking at are not colored. This was just me to be able to point to this green line so you knew what it meant on that plan. That's like a little 4-space parking compound. Since there is a potential for an accessible unit in the front building, we actually add an accessible parking space there. The drive continues on back and actually next down so that we now have this 14.5-foot one-way street heading north. The proposed building, 36 feet by 84.5 feet, sits here up along these 15-foot west buffer. We have parking spaces that come in along the south side of the building. That's a small compound of 5 of them there. We have 7 more parking spaces really geared purposefully to be angled parking because that's what we're enforcing, this one-way nature of the entire northbound access drive. As we get to the end of the building, it then loops back on around, and the intent then is for egress to be through the existing access easement. Now, as far as the number of parking spaces, back in January of 2019, the township essentially overhauled the Article 8, I believe. Article 8, the parking needs pretty much throughout all of your traditional values of X number of spaces based on Y square feet, et cetera, and made everything a function of the International Traffic Engineering parking design protocols. For years, the ITE manual has been what's been used to generate peak flows for traffic improvements. I personally, not being a traffic engineer, wasn't even aware that they had a special manual for parking needs, but they do, and that's what the township has been using for the last year and a half. We engaged Ritu Associates, John Schick. I presented this situation to him. He did the math, generated that the ITE parking manual indicated that 16 spaces would be needed for these 8 new units, plus these 2 in the front. That's what we have now shown on this plan. And of course, his corroborating calculations would be part of a future subdivision land development ordinance if the board would see clear to approve this requested variances. So it just seemed prudent, instead of trying to just lump them all in like one parking spot, it seems a lot more prudent to set up this compound of 4 for the 2 unit up front, and then the additional 12 kind of wrapping around the proposed 8 unit apartment building. As Lisa mentioned, there is an accessible conversion possibility in that structure. So this southernmost parking space is in fact the handicap accessible, and then we have regular spaces, and then we head on out. The ordinance also requires placement of a dumpster pad. We set this up to be all the way in the back, and you might think that's quite a long walk for somebody from up front, and you know what, it is. But at the same time, because of the site, that was the best place that would afford a waste hauler to be able to pull in, pull forward, back up, and then pull right back out again. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what we came up with as far as the layout.
Thank you, Greg. And if you would kindly, I know Exhibit E to the application shows it, but show us for the setback that that's part of our application, the side yard setback in the existing building.
The side yard setback is actually this thin line that you see, CAD drawn line along, it's 5 feet off of the west line. There's also a setback 5 feet off of the east line. The existing side yard 5 foot actually cuts into the building such that at the least separation between the west property line and the building is 3.77 feet, which means that we'd be looking for a variance of 1.33 feet to essentially allow that existing structure to continue to encroach over into that side yard setback. The building itself, the proposed, and if I don't mind, I just want to mention this because I kind of glossed over it. In the zoning ordinance and in the subdivision ordinance, it identified that in the VR zone, buffer planting sketch schematic type A would be used. A calls for a 15-foot wide planted buffer along both sides of the land development. That's why you see the 15-foot setback of all of these improvements. There's no access drive in that buffer except where it crosses up here. There's no building, no other proposed improvements.
Now, sir, you've heard Lisa describe the character of the neighborhood for the record, and you're familiar with the neighborhood as well, correct?
Not to the extent that Lisa is, but yes, generally, yes.
So generally, you would concur it's mixed use, commercial and residential?
Oh, yes, definitely.
And do you have an opinion, sir, whether or not the proposed improvements that Lisa would intend would have any untoward or negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood?
None whatsoever, because it actually fits in with the neighborhood. And again, if not for a scrivener's error in preparing a deed that resulted in the 1964 square feet short, we wouldn't even be here going over this. So no, I believe this could easily be developed, and it would not at all infringe on the character of the neighborhood.
And very quickly for the record, again, Marietta Avenue is what class is a street?
It is a PennDOT road.
I beg your pardon?
It's a PennDOT highway.
Major artery.
Yes.
I think, Mr. Chairman, that might be all I have for this witness.
Question, Mr. Hanson.
So you're saying, my understanding of the parking is you need to justify to us that you have enough available parking is basically the way it was explained to me by our zoning officer today.
Yeah.
If you have 2 people in every one of those apartments, you don't have enough parking. Now, I understand Ms. Cooper testified there would some be single and there may be some double, but let's assume that 50% of those apartments are 2 people and the other 50% are single, which would then say, yes, 12 spaces would be enough. However, anybody that comes to visit, you don't have any parking for them. To me, 12 spaces, the 4 spaces up front for the front, that's plenty. I don't have, because you're going to have 2 units there.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always gone by that for every residential unit, you need to have 2 parking spaces. Because I can show you, just go across the street and there's 3 or 4 cars at every one of these houses and people are parking on the street. So there's no way you can justify the 12 spaces being enough for those 8 apartments.
The unfortunate thing is the ordinance clearly established that ITE parking manual as being the method by which this is calculated. And so I understand what you're saying, sir, but at the same time, if that's what we are using and that's the threshold, the standard that we're to aim for, that's pretty much, we actually had somebody do it special to make this, to give us that number. That being the case, I see your point. Sure, I've often used that over the years myself. Where okay, so you do establish two spaces per unit, and then what if they have a party? Somebody shows up. I get all that. What we can do is there is room for us to at least add a couple extra spaces, but we're not going to be able to deviate very far. Whether this was a 1 acre site or whether it's a 0.955 acre site, we're not going to be able to deviate very far from the 16 that was calculated by that manual. I think, unfortunately, the township may have crossed that bridge back when they eliminated all of their prior requirements.
Like I said, from what I understand, the township zoning officer's explanation to me is you need to be able to prove to me that the parking you're providing is adequate. To me, 12 spaces is not adequate. There's no proof there.
I think it's 2 issues. Well, number 1 is, do we comply with the ordinance? And then number 2, do we go beyond that and require additional spaces? I'm not certain how we can respond to that if we're complying with the ordinance. But I do think if Gregory's correct, if we can add more in the back.
At this point, what I can present with you, and if it takes another exhibit, would be I have the summary email from the engineer that we hired, who said, here, I've done the calculations and it's 16 spaces. And I have a chart which he had sent along to me. But I'll be honest, it's a data plot and an equation, and it's taken directly from the manual. And I can't begin to try to explain this to you because frankly, I don't understand it myself. All I know is that's why I hired him, and he gave me the number. And that's what we do plan on providing through when we, if this goes through.
Let me hold you up a second.
Okay.
If the zoning officer tells me that's the fact, because that's not what he told me earlier today. But my other question is, this is the same people that do traffic studies that have so far off base on their traffic studies that we've had in here. So is he correct or?
He's correct. So I think the parking will be looked at during the land development process. You would have to justify it. At this time, the township has not received any plan for this project. So we can't really speak to parking other than what was presented here. So.
Well, because we have not yet submitted a land development plan.
So I apologize, Mark, if I spoke incorrectly earlier. So that would be handled during the land development process.
But
So
the applicant needs to be able to prove to us that they can provide the adequate parking.
correct. And I think Mr. Strausser said he has a report from Mr. Schick that that would meet that, or you would submit that.
That's correct.
To meet that regulation or whatnot. So, and that would be looked at during the land development process.
Okay,
So,
well,
yeah.
I'm hesitant to give a variance if they can't prove it, and the land development process says they have to add more parking. And one of the questions I do have is which.
And also we can make a condition that, part of Saldo, we have to show that.
Mr. Luce.
Just when you're looking on there, you're getting rid of that barn, aren't you?
Correct.
Why can you not continue more spaces down through there? You have the Ford going right up to that barn, and what's the other space going to be utilized?
We could. Yeah, we provided the 16.
I understand what you're saying.
Just going by the law, but yeah, there is wiggle room to be able to add additional spaces. In this case, we actually could have tucked in 2 more. We want to keep a decent buffer island though, because it was very important to me to be able to get this, we want to get these spaces as close to the unit as possible. That's why we have the sidewalk coming around. This one works out really clever grading wise, because if you're handicapped, you get out and you're right there. Anyway, point being, yes, there is room to accommodate additional spaces if the resolution and discernment process ends up requiring same. But to stand there right now and say, yes, let's horse trade that up to 18 spaces.
Understood.
I don't want to make that commitment until we really get the input coming back from the land development folks. I think I'll echo what Attorney Hess mentioned.
I think we can make a condition that we comply with during the Saldo process, comply with all the parking requirements.
And let me just get a little clarification on this, because when they go through the subdivision and land development process, so my understanding my understanding is that they have to get they have to comply with whatever this ITE says is the recommended number of spaces for this type of use.
Correct.
Is that a minimum, or is that, what does that say? When they go through, when they refer to the ITE manual for this type of use, does it give them a minimum number of spaces, or
it gives them a minimum and a maximum, and then they would have to justify what they need. If they were to exceed that amount or propose less than that amount based on the 85th percentile, which is what the township is looking for that use, and for how many spaces that use requires, we would like to see something in the 85th percentile. If they want to exceed it, then they'll have to justify it, so it's really, it was adopted because we want to let the market drive and let the applicant really tell us what they want, instead of just putting in all this impervious that may not be used. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So that being said, Mr. Strausser, I don't know at what point you are at in that process, but do you know the 12 spaces that you're talking about right now, is that the minimum number of spaces, or would the ITE recommendations allow for something
Perhaps
more than that?
Perhaps this would add some clarity. The actual requirements stated under section 270-8.1, off-street parking shall be provided to meet the demand for the proposed land use. The applicant shall calculate this demand based on accepted standards such as published in the Institute of Transportation Engineers parking generation reports or another acceptable standard. So that was kind of our go-to spot at this point, just to have a number that we could aim for in design-wise. They don't really use the term minimum maximum. I did glean from this chart, one of the few things I did understand about it is John did mention, yes, we calculated something. There was an 85th percentile rate, and that calculates to 16 spaces. It's not really set up as, okay, but that's your minimum demand as per the traditional zoning requirement. And so you got to at least meet that threshold and then do something else. But I think it does make sense to be able to say, well, okay, that might be this 85th. The township has a goal of not having excessive impervious surface that never get used. I don't think you're going to see that in an apartment situation. I think if there are spaces there, they probably will get used a lot more than that vacant 1/3 that sits empty at Park City. So I understand the point behind it, and adding additional spaces when we get to the land development phase is something that we would certainly do. But what Mr. Schick computed for us will be reviewed by the township engineer, just like my stormwater management will be reviewed by the township engineer someday,
Also,
if we get to that point.
For the record, I'd like to, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I understand it. The whole issue here is, number one, I personally don't believe you have enough parking. But number two, this is the same ITE that said that Spooky Nook Road would generate one additional car at peak time in 10 years' time. Okay? So this board finds a lot of times skeptical on ITE.
And I'm not sharing that. I totally don't share that skepticism at times as well, seeing some of the numbers that come out. It can be almost a cynical skepticism on my part, but I think for point of presentation, to support a land development plan where we were trying to show something can be done here, that it's not rock solid. I mean, this was a hand-drawn sketch by me. There's a lot of CAD work, a lot of computing to show, yes, we can meet a requirement and then work it through at the land development phase. I think the intent was just to show we can do this even though there was a 50-year-old error in a deed that took 1,900 square feet. That's all.
Add for the record that John Schick, I think, is recognized locally as
he is,
traffic
yeah.
expert, an expert in traffic engineering. But I understand totally the questions, and I understand we have to deal with it at Saldo. So I suppose I would respectfully suggest that the condition simply say that we have to comply with all parking requirements.
I can do that, but number one, the zoning ordinance says you have to be able to prove the number of spaces. You are providing enough spaces. Whether, hold on, excuse me, whether you provide them or whatever Saldo says is fine, but you have to be able to prove to me that you're providing enough spaces. Right now, to me, 12 spaces is not enough to grant you a variance for this project, along with some other questions I have here, but for now, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Cooper. Okay.
If we need more parking spaces, put them in.
But
they don't do me any good. They know you can't do it because they don't have parking spaces when I have plenty of space to build them.
I understand that, but well,
then what
you don't have plenty of space because you have stormwater management. You have to take into consideration. Okay.
What?
But do you understand my reluctance here? I don't want to give you a variance if you can't prove to me that you can provide them. Now, if we were going to condition this and you were willing to accept the condition,
I will.
then we could do that.
we have to do it anyway. I think that's a
Yeah,
condition. Yeah.
it's got to pass muster. Yeah. This isn't just, okay, we got through zoning, here we go, it's everything. No, there's a whole nother level of discernment.
Okay,
Yeah.
moving on. What is the total lot coverage going to be? I didn't see anything. On the
I didn't
plan.
even compute the maximum impervious coverage to this. Yeah, there's nothing on the plan
Are you-
regarding that.
Are you going to be under 70%?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It definitely will comply with the ordinance. Again, based on a sketch plan for intent. I'm sorry, I didn't do that.
Where, again, we have really nothing to do with this, but you need to be able to prove to us that you're going to be able to maintain or do your water retention on the existing property.
Yeah, the stormwater management will be in this entire backyard area. We actually have, bear with me. We have almost 100 feet by almost 100 feet area in order to do our basin. We ran some rough calculations. That is the low spot. The discharge point is off to the northwest, very flat. We'll be berming it. We'll be having our, the perk and probes will indicate that there is that there's going to be a water quality component to this, as well as I was kind of reserving some of this grass area up in here to be another area because we wanted to try to break up some of the BMPs and get them at different spots for soaking, but the rate control would be back in that area.
Okay. And this is straight from the ordinance, which as old as this area is, makes no sense to me, but number 9 under design criteria says you're required to have pedestrian walkways, sidewalks. I don't see anything on the plan.
We are showing a sidewalk now. If that's, I understand what you're saying now, sir. Okay, you in the north-south, the access drive.
Ms. Cooper, leave the witness because one, you don't have a mic and it's getting very difficult for the court reporter to pick up, so.
Yeah, the green that we had showed all around the proposed building, I'm sorry, the double line is a proposed 3-foot sidewalk.
But they're saying, according to the ordinance, what they're talking about is a north-south sidewalk, which I would grant it. If you were to ask for a variance to that, I could understand why you'd want to ask for a variance for that because nobody else has a sidewalk on that road.
Amend our application.
That would, Mr. Chairman, will have to take care of that later. Are you planning on having any signage? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Any other questions? Colin?
No other.
Jason?
Let me just check. And then other than what you've indicated, you'll comply with all the other dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. I don't think I have anything else.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Hanson.
I guess with that, I would the extent that.
1 second.
I have a
Mr.
follow-up.
I'm sorry. I think
Mr.
Mr. Hess, I apologize.
Ms. Cooper, one of the things that we need to look at it for variance that doesn't change the character of the neighborhood, okay? I don't normally go down that section of Marietta Pike only because every time I'm down that area, I always go somewhere else because I can't stand the traffic. But when I took a drive down there on Friday, what made me spot your property was the condominiums or apartments or whatever they are right next door, which is so out of character to all the old houses that sit there on Marietta. So you're only going to add to that, which is so out of character of that type of village.
I can make them look different. That's an easy thing to do. I mean, obviously, I can't make them look like the old buildings, but there's a couple modern houses across the street as well. There's split levels and there's ranches and, you know, they're not all the old brick buildings, just right there they are.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for this witness? Anyone in the audience have a question for this witness? Okay, thank you. Mr. Hess.
Thank you.
I have nothing more except to request, to the extent where the ordinance requires a north-south sidewalk, request a variance from that section.
Okay, we will.
That's to amend the petition accordingly.
Right, we'll amend the application when we're totally done.
Also, I'm sorry, I moved to admit the exhibits 1 through 5, plus, as I indicated, I'd ask that the application be a part of our case in chief.
And we'll do that when we conclude.
Just one question. Did you ask for this to be as admitted as an exhibit as well, the entry of appearance, or were you asked? No. So the application was exhibit 4 then? Okay, all right. I understand.
This is for you, Mr. Hanson, so I'm getting this when we get to the point. The diagram that's up there, which was part of the application, that's in color, shows, I presume, sidewalks along the new building.
Correct.
That runs north and south.
Well, not, say east-west, whatever orientation Marietta Avenue is.
Yeah, but sort of a south-west to northeast, looks like it would be. You're not talking about eliminating that.
No, we're
You're
talking about which would
along
Marietta Avenue.
Oh, so you're saying you want to eliminate a east-west
East-west
sidewalk?
side, yeah.
What
Sorry.
about the question then of a sidewalk along the property that would run north and south because of that lane that's there?
Could be provided, I guess. I mean.
But do you have a problem with eliminating that too, but leaving what's shown on the diagram along the?
Right, leaving what's shown on the diagram, eliminating the one on the north-south would be along the lane, would be eliminated also under your request. Okay. Because if I'm correct, that driveway is 20 feet wide, correct? No, the existing easement driveway.
The existing easement, yes, sir. Yes. It
Just-
generally bounces around about 20 to 21.
20 wide enough.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure when we get to that point. You're done then, Mr. Hess, correct? Yeah. Okay. I promise to give you time for comments, sir.
Okay. Just one quick comment. My only concern is, and this clears up some of it, I guess I need to make sure that we have a conversation. Basically, I want to make sure that the road that we're currently using for 2103, we come up with an arrangement so that we can take and keep it maintained.
Right, I saw.
It sort of indicates in the easement that it spells that out. It doesn't, we have to have a further discussion about it, but it does spell it out to a bit.
Okay. So then, literally, with that, when we have no control over easement
I
agreements,
understand that.
you're saying that you don't have an issue with this application?
I do not have an issue with
Okay.
the application.
Okay, so I needed, thanks. Does anybody have a question for the gentleman? Seeing none. Anything else, gentlemen? Anything? If not, then we will conclude testimony in case number 2416. At the request of the applicant, they would request that the application be amended to ask for a variance to section 270-3.7.E9 to eliminate the need for a east-west sidewalk along Marietta Avenue and a southeast-northwest sidewalk by the easement driveway. Is that basically?
Yeah, they would still maintaining their sidewalks interior.
Right, and, but interior sidewalks would still be required and maintained. Is that? Okay. That is the request of the applicant. Do I have a? What's?
270, not 207.
Oh, yeah. Also, the applicant, I forgot that, seeking to amend the application under the nature of request and applicable sections. The section noted is 207-3.7E3D. It should be section 270-3.7E3D. So can I have a motion, gentlemen, to amend the application for those two provisions? So moved. Moved by Mr. Luce. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bingham. Any discussion, gentlemen?
Can you tell me what the section is for the sidewalk? Because I just didn't get it.
Aha. 270-3.7.E9, page 50. Oops, I just lost it. Page 58.
Okay. Thanks.
Any questions, gentlemen? Discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Kyle? Favor. Mr. Luce?
In favor.
Mr. Hanson?
In favor.
Mr. Bingham?
In favor.
I also vote in favor. The application has been amended. Now, gentlemen, we will take it, add into evidence applicants exhibit, excuse me, 1 through 5, 1 being a picture, 2 GIS, 3 plans that consisted of 4 sheets. 4 was the initial application as it has been amended, and 5 was the easement agreement. I have no administrative notice for this property. With that, gentlemen, I will listen to a motion, if there is one, at this time. Do I have a motion, gentlemen?
Just to keep this moving, I'll make a motion. Mr. Chairman, for case number 2416, property located at 2111 Marietta Avenue, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, PA 17603. I make a motion to grant a variance to sections 270-3.7E3D and 270-3.7E2 and 273.7E9 with the following conditions. Parking needs to have 16 spaces provided for the new housing section. And our standard conditions.
Okay, motion by Mr. Hanson, case number 2416 for the property at 2111 Marietta Avenue, Lancaster, PA, to grant variance to sections 270-3.7.E.3D and 270-3.7.E.2 and 270-3.7.E9.
I guess we should add that the side yard setback, your total side yard setback was going to be 3.11 feet, is that correct?
3.77 feet at least.
Okay.
That's the 270.3.
70E2.
Yeah. With the following conditions. One, that there be at least 16 spaces for the new housing section, and two, are standard conditions. Is that your motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bingham. Questions, discussion, gentlemen? Can I add another condition? And that condition is that the existing building, which has an office in it, that office will be eliminated, so that the existing building will only have 2 residential units in it, and then the new dwelling would have the additional 8.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll vacate my office.
I will condition that when
Before the renovation takes place on the existing structure, how's that?
okay, that's one way of doing it, because I didn't want to make it such that we never finish the project, so we don't eliminate the office. So that the office will be there, may remain until the renovations take place.
For that structure.
For the
existing
structure, yes. Is that agreeable to you?
Yes.
Agreeable to you? Any other discussion, gentlemen? Mr. Hanson?
I'm going to grudgingly vote in favor of this. However, there are still some questions that are unanswered. Also, I do think it does change the character of the neighborhood, but for the reason of 1,900 square feet is the only reason you're here anyway. Because you could go, well, I shouldn't say that, because you still would have needed the side yard setback. But again, I don't think it fits in the neighborhood. But because I can't come up with a valid reason not to grant it, you're grudgingly getting my vote.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Mr. Hanson, so is your condition about the parking, is it that they provide for 16 spaces for the new
The
building?
new structure, because they're providing 16 on their plan.
Okay,
But if you go by the 2 per unit, then they need 16 for the new structure. And that's what it would be. They have to provide, the condition is they have to provide 16 parking spaces for the new structure,
okay.
Or a minimum of 20.
or minimum, or total minimum of 20.
Yep. So that will, condition 1 will, would you agree to say that instead of 16 spaces for the new housing section,
Total of 20
that
on the property.
a minimum of a total of 20 spaces for the development
Yes.
of this property? Mr. Bingham, you agree with that change? Okay. You understand, Jason?
Yeah, I understand the condition.
Any other discussions, gentlemen? Mr. Kyle?
In favor.
Mr. Luz?
In favor.
Mr. Hanson?
In favor.
Mr. Bingham?
In favor.
And grudgingly, yes, I'll vote in favor also.
Thank you.
So your request for the variances as requested in the amended application have been granted with the 3 conditions as stated. With that, thank you. Sir, thank you. Thank you, everyone. With that, any other business?
No.
What's next month?
I think the deadline is next week, so we're not sure yet, but nothing as of yet.
Nothing as of yet?
As of yet, no.
But on the 3rd Monday, Cheryl, Jason,
Yeah, I'm good.
gentlemen, everybody seemed to be okay? Okay. With that, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.